Hello and welcome to the interview with the President of the Republic of Bolivia, Evo Morales. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this interview and to share ideas on the subject of climate change.
Yes, we're going to start with climate change. 2 years ago, an agreement was signed in Paris, but many people say that this agreement is under threat. Of course, because the United States have decided to withdraw from this agreement. Are you worried that everything that was decided on 2 years ago will not materialize today?
I remember very well a meeting of presidents 3 years ago. We had some very intense discussions here. And at the end of the discussions, we achieved the Paris Agreement to preserve life, to preserve Mother Earth, to preserve the planet. And then 2 years later, the United States withdraws from the Paris Agreement. It's a sign of contempt for life, Mother Earth, and in particular for the international community. The biggest polluter, country that is the biggest destroyer of life, is withdrawing from this agreement. This is totally unacceptable, unforgivable.
But that's the reality, so what is to be done?
Well, that's why I welcome the invitation of the President of France and the Secretary General of the United Nations to meet here and to study together what sanctions, what penalties we can apply to countries that do not respect their commitments, or international organizations or private companies. And I have a proposal which would be to create a climate justice court. And once this climate justice court has been set up, we could see how we could apply sanctions retroactively for the well-being of mankind.
Do you think sanctions should be imposed on the United States?
Unfortunately, there have to be sanctions, there have to be penalties. This is not to punish any one country or an international organization or a private company. It's the question of preserving life, mankind, future generations. This is what we have to preserve, and this is why we need to discuss how to create a climate justice court.
But there's also the issue of money. $100 billion have been promised every year for the less developed countries. And not only on the part of the United States, but the rich countries are not paying that money. Isn't that a problem?
Well, I think that the commitment was $100 billion a year. And in fact, not even 10% of that commitment is being respected so far. And the worst is that these resources are going to be privatized, as if it were the private sector. Privatization means capitalization. How is the private sector going to solve the crisis of capitalism via capitalism itself? This is another of our major differences of opinion, aside from the fact that they're not respecting their commitments to grant these $100 billion.
But that's true of all the countries. Do you want to denounce that? There are promises to save the planet. The rich countries say, let's wait, we have to buy other things, weapons, we have to educate people, and so on.
Well, just imagine, next year, the military budget of the United States is supposed to be $700 billion. The budget to wage war for military operations, $700 billion. For a country like that, or for capitalist countries, what does this sum represent? It means that they're not thinking of preserving the life of future generations. This is the whole issue that is at stake, and this is why I'd like to welcome the initiative of the French President for us to meet here and to hold these discussions responsibly so that conclusions can be implemented throughout the world.
I'd like to talk about Donald Trump. In your view, does he represent a danger for the world, or is it more complex than that?
The government of the United States, with Donald Trump at its head, is not only a danger, but I would even say the worst enemy of mankind, the worst enemy of Mother Earth. First of all, he withdraws from the Paris Agreement, and then he withdraws from agreements that were supposed to be signed on migration. And then thirdly, he threatens Palestine by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Can you imagine the convulsions that this is bringing about? I wonder if Trump doesn't have mental issues.
Mental problems?
Well, that's the only explanation I can see, because a human being, no less than the President of the United States, I don't see how he can commit such mistakes. I think the time has come for the American people. I mean, president is one thing, the people, the American people, is something else. I have heard that municipalities of states of the United States, the private sector from North America, they have rejected Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. So it's not the president, it's the president and his government.
But what do you ask the American people to do? Change the president in the middle of his mandate?
Well, for the president to listen to the people and to govern listening to the people and to the world as a whole, and not to govern through flights of fancy. It's not because he has money that he can decide to do whatever he wants to do. President Trump. It's not a question of displaying his power or exporting a war like interventionist policies or privatization. No, he needs to understand the world and listen to the people.
But you have said that he has mental problems. For a long time, people like you or Latin American leaders have accused the United States of interventionism, explicit or implicit. What you're saying is different, it's not usual.
Well, it's one thing to apply measures of the capitalist system or according to a socialist system. You can choose. In Bolivia, it's written into the constitution that you can have different ideologies. But to threaten life by not respecting the Paris Agreement and continuing interventions or threatening war, not respecting agreements on migration or building walls, all of these measures, we're no longer talking just about the capitalist system. This is something else. And this is really a threat to future generations. And therefore, I don't think any human being can make mistakes like that. That's why I say he has mental problems.
Is he a racist president vis-à-vis the Latin Americans?
Well, I think this has already been proved. Racist, fascist, he excludes, marginalizes. He doesn't think of the people. He's thinking of a very small group, part of the people, capitalism. And we have this major difference with the United States or other countries of the capitalist system. The people can vote, but it's the multinationals who govern, the bankers who govern. Whereas in other countries like Bolivia or elsewhere, the people vote for the president of the government to govern with him, with the people, obeying the people.
We're now going to talk about Bolivia. A decision was taken recently by the Constitutional Court, which will enable you to stand for the presidency for another mandate in 2019. In February of last year, a referendum was held in Bolivia, and the answer was a negative answer. Nothing could be changed. But you, when the result was announced, you said that you accepted the result of the referendum. Some people now say that Evo Morales is trying to be president for a fourth mandate or perhaps forever.
Well, it's up to the people. It's the people who will decide. In accordance with the Constitution, the Constitutional Court has handed down its decision, Constitution decision, in compliance with the Constitution and respecting international norms. And so it's not a question of saying Evo is president again. The people must decide if he will win a new term or not.
But at the referendum, the people decided negatively. There are some people who now say that it's a way for you to remain president. There are people who accuse you of trying to convert the country into a dictatorship.
Well, before I became president, the 5 previous years, there was a different president every year, 5 different presidents. So we are guaranteeing social stability and economic growth. Well, is it my fault if the people takes a decision and if the Constitutional Court, basing itself on the Constitution, international norms, says I can be candidate, this means I can stand again. It's standing as candidate. I haven't been elected yet, but the people choose me as president, then I will be president.
What I'm saying is that many dictators across the world say the same thing. That is to say, it's the people who have called on me. Stability is the most important thing.
Which dictators? Tell me.
In many African countries, for example.
What is a dictatorship? It is overthrowing a government by force of arms through a coup d'etat. This is not what we have in Bolivia. In Bolivia, you respect the sovereign will of the people. That's not a dictatorship.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Morales. Thank you for listening to us.